Thank you. They're playing your song. Yeah. You know what? Every time I see you, I think this is my potential right here, huh? That's what I got to look forward to. All right. Really excited to be here today. I want to make this interactive, and I want to make it about you guys because it's really important that we walk away with some real value. One of the things that was cool about this morning with David Bach was I learned a couple things. First of all, and see if you guys kind of agree with this. You want to take a picture? Okay. It's not really how much money you earn. It's really how you invest your money, and it's really how you spend the money, and it's really your thought process. Because he showed today, which I thought was really cool, how someone was making $3,000. We'll use dollars. I know some of us are not here, and if we were going to do it in pounds or something like that, it'd probably be like what would that be, like 10 pounds, $3,000, something like that conversion? I don't know, the euro. But how somebody can make $3,000 US a month and yet have more investment and more retirement opportunity than someone making 3 or 4 times that. So it's not about how big you are even in this business. It's how do you leverage, and I think that's the key word, both your time and your effort. Now I have a 6-year-old little girl, her name's Alexis, and what's cool about Alexis is we wanted to teach her fiscal responsibility early on. And from age 3 up, she's 6 now, but age 3 we started giving her a salary, okay? People say, you mean an allowance? No, allowance is family welfare, okay? What we do is a salary. She does certain jobs, she gets paid. You don't do your job, you don't get paid. You do half your job, you get half pay. But she has 3 jars that's in her room. 1 jar is her save jar, 1 jar is her spend jar, 1 jar is her donate jar. So she knows every $5 she gets for the week's salary, that $1 goes into her save. David Bach spoke about that, 20%. And $1 goes into donate, and then the rest she can do with whatever she wants, the $3. Some months or in some weeks, she just wants to save because she wants to get something. And she's proven that. Like my wife took her to Target, which is a superstore, in the States, and we were in there, and she said, "Mom, I really want to get this doll." She goes, "Well, that's $22, and we don't have that kind of money in our purse right now." She goes, "Don't worry, I got it." And she whips out her purse, and she's got the cash. She emptied out her spend jar. But there's other times where she'll say, "I want to put more of this back into here." And I think with that, here recently, she said, last week, in fact, she told my wife, she said, "Mom, do you mind if I take some money from my spend jar and buy a coat and a scarf? It's getting cold." And she's like, "You never have to buy your clothes, Alexis. We will always buy your clothes." And she said, No, it's not for me. But I saw this tree at school where there were some kids that don't have coats and scarves, and I wanted to do something for them. And I believe that it's, again, part of that fiscal responsibility, because if you want to be fiscally responsible as an adult, some of us, I know probably a lot of us, didn't have that kind of guidance from our parents, did we? I grew up, my dad, we were broke, and he had a scarcity mentality. Why do you want money? People with money are unhappy. We're broke, we're pretty unhappy, doesn't have anything to do with that part. The reality is what are you going to do with what you have, and are you happy? Are you happy and grateful? And that's why it was really refreshing to hear Dave talk about that this morning, because it is about really how you see things. It's not what you do or what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens to you that matters. So I'm going to talk about entrepreneurial values this morning, or morning somewhere, afternoon now, and I'm going to do it from a 6-year-old's perspective, because I think that we can learn a lot. Who has children? Anybody? Very cool. And if you have children, you know that you can learn a lot from a child, even if they have no experience. And if you don't have children, all you have to do is begin watching the children. If you don't have children and you're by the pool, I would be careful how close you watch. You'll get in trouble. That's some sensitive. Okay, that didn't go over as well as I thought it would, but it's funny, But the reality is that 6-year-olds can give us a lot of cool things. So here's the question I wanted to ask you guys. Why did you even choose this lifestyle? Because being an entrepreneur is something that's very unique that many people never really get to experience in life. So why did you even choose this lifestyle? Anybody have an idea? Okay, fun's actually a great word. Let me write it down. Because I think that there's some key similarities between all of us, right? Nice. All right, so I'm going to write the word fun here. Hey, by the way, with this counter, it doesn't move? Is that normal? What's that? Does the timer work or no? It just says 1:15. There we go. Okay. Now, what's another reason why we chose this lifestyle? Okay. All right, hold on. What'd you say? Freedom, okay. So we'll talk about that in a second. Freedom. Somebody said potential. I heard him say that. Please use nickel words. I'm not that smart. Potential. If I don't know how to spell something, I usually will just start and then just kind of go like that. All right. What's another one? Somebody else says. Network. Okay. Let's do a couple more here. Network. Ma'am, what'd you say? Independence. I'll put that up here with freedom. I think that's a good word. Okay. Ma'am? Okay. Thinking creative. Okay. Creatively. And yes, sir. Making a difference. I like that. That's good. Let's do one more here. Making a difference. Difference. Okay. Ma'am, in the very back. Rewarding. Okay. Rewarding. Fantastic. All right, so let's look at a couple of these, just so I can make sure, and I bet many of us can relate to this. If we look at the fun, this is the great part. Fun is about doing something that you enjoy. Many people, you're on this earth 80 years if you're kind of lucky and you live a decent life, right? And how many years do people go to a job that they hate and that they despise? And I was somewhere, and this younger kid, he had an attitude, and I'm like, and I love it when people have attitude right when you walk up, before you even have an opportunity to even interact with them, and and I like just saying, I'm sorry, did I say something that offended you? I didn't mean to upset you. No, you didn't offend me. I just don't like my job. And he goes, my job sucks. Can you believe that? A guy tells you, my job sucks. I was like, I know, that's why we gave it to you. The reality is that if you're in a job you don't like, wouldn't you at least want to do a good job? Because you're there anyway. Have fun, and having fun shrinks time. Having fun means you can make a difference. And it really doesn't matter what you're doing as long as you're enjoying it. And we know people probably that are in a marriage or a relationship that they're not having fun. Boy, isn't that exciting, right? And that's the way I usually equate when you meet a jerk at a restaurant or something. I think, hey, at least I'm not married to her, right? Because somebody's got to go home to that. I go the other way. And that's just kind of part of this process. If we look at freedom and independence, again, I know that as entrepreneurs, a lot of times we equate that to financial freedom and financial independence, but I think also freeing our minds from the conditions that people are forced to do their whole life, meaning they have to go to work. And you ask my father, who worked for a company for 40 years, why'd you do it? Well, my dad did it, and lucky for him, he had what, for the younger people who may not know what this word is, a pension. He didn't have 401k. They had pensions. And the reality is that doesn't exist anymore. There are no more pensions that I know of. Maybe government, but in real jobs, I don't see many of them. So what we have to do is create our own financial independence. We can't count on anybody else. We have to look in the mirror and count on ourselves. It doesn't matter if you're 18 or 68. The reality is we can make a difference. And then we look at potential. I think this is a really good one, to whoever said that, because I don't believe that we work at our own potential. If you even ask yourself right now, and by the way, there were more people here this morning than this afternoon. Imagine that. It's so hard. I've been paying my dues. It's not working. I joined the gym 3 years ago. I'm still fat, all right? You can't pay dues, or you can't come to a place and then just expect success. You have to be committed. Would you agree? And the reality is that you got to look here and say, what is my potential? And am I working at my critical mass, my bandwidth, my own ability? How much of that am I really leveraging? And network. Let me use a better word for that for here. Community. Here's what I found. When we've interviewed over the last 10 years countless successful people, both in selling, entrepreneurs, as well as leaders within organizations. And here's what we found very common trait in terms of pulling a string through. And this is it. This is really cool. Successful people hang out with successful people. Isn't that interesting? People with bad attitudes hang out with people with bad attitudes. It's interesting when you start truly looking at who you're around in the community. And are you leveraging, by the way, price of admission to be a part of this community, doing a morning wake-up call, or being a part of, a group where I can actually be around people that think the way I think, to me is worth it. Because I'm around enough people that are negative. Don't believe me, turn on the news. We talk about the economy and how it's having a hard time getting kickstart. Imagine if CNN and all the other major news outlets, if all they did over the next 60 days was just promote how wonderful the economy is now, and how everybody's starting to spend money and it's over, and we're going to have the next 10 years of bliss. Do you think the economy would shift? So it's not an issue of the money, it's an issue of mindset. It's not an issue of your potential, it's an issue of your mindset. What do you believe? Your beliefs drive your actions. And if you believe you're going to have a hard time, you'll find all the evidence to support it, because you don't want to be wrong. And then we look at the final couple things here, thinking creatively. Again, it's just that getting outside the lines of traditional thinking and making a difference and rewarding, to me, is probably the most important. Because what are you doing that's making a difference on someone else's life? And it doesn't have to be money. It could be your time. Time, talents, treasures, if you're on the religious side. And the reality is that your ability to share and help or encourage other people is something that somebody needs a lot. I met a guy recently who wasn't that encouraging. He wasn't that upbeat. He wasn't that friendly. And he's in customer service. And I told him, I said, be thankful you don't work on a suicide hotline. I mean, this guy, how is somebody really going to get into that? So there are some psychosocial characteristics of entrepreneurs, and I want to share a couple of them with you. First thing is that people who value stimulation would likely be attracted to a challenging opportunity. This is not easy, but it's worth it. And it's easy to look at someone else. And by the way, if someone's new in this community, and all of a sudden they started at silver, and then they worked hard, and the next thing you know, they're a top producer generating incredible opportunity for themselves, and they do it and they spend 3 years of hard labor. You know what they usually call that person? Lucky. That's what people say. Oh, just look how lucky she is. Look how lucky he got. He got in early. It's not luck, it's hard work, it's discipline. It's being willing to do what most people are not willing to do. That's the difference. Whereas those who value security may find that same opportunity, like pro, a threat or too hard. That to me is what's most interesting. It's okay to have a job. I'm not critical of people that want a job, but a job is not safe. Okay? And not only is it not safe, but people a lot of times even make it harder for themselves within the job. I'll give you a great example. I've been a customer at this particular bank for the last 20 years, and we do quite a bit of business with them, both from deposits as well as transactions. And I had a $2.50 charge for an ATM withdrawal that I shouldn't have to pay. And I didn't ask for them to reimburse me for the other bank's charge, just mine. And the branch manager said, well, I've been here for 3 years and we've never done that before. Okay, well, I've been here for 20 years and I don't think I should pay for it. And I kind of expect, well, I'll look into it because I really don't know you. Well, you can look at my account and you can see, am I worth $2.50? You see, here's the difference. There are a lot of you out there in banks. Why am I going to choose to use you? Why do people make it difficult to want to do business with them? It's not that difficult to be. And I'm not trying to steal from you. I'm asking you to be courteous to a customer that's good to you, So, this explains why you're not crazy. Because a lot of times we do feel like that. Listen, when I gave up my job, when I ran an organization that did training and sales development and all that kind of garbage, and gave up the income that most people probably would love to have, to go to pretty much zero, people said, you're nuts. This one guy was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen anybody do, and that was my dad. But if you believe in it, I'm willing to take a chance. Because you're not going to regret what you do. You're going to regret what you wish you would have done, and I wish I would have done that, and what would have happened if. And by the way, if you failed, did you really fail, or did you do something that most people are scared to do? And so with my daughter, number one, she's brainwashed, okay? I've started since she was little teaching her about how when you work hard, you can succeed. I rarely tell her, let's put it that way, how proud I am of her. I always tell her, you should be proud of yourself. Look what you did. When you work hard, look what you can accomplish. Because I want her self-esteem and her image to come from within, not from some 15-year-old kid at the mall when she's older, right? I want to be able to know that she's confident with that. So I sat down with her last week, and I just started asking her a lot of questions just to kind of see what comes out of the mouth of babes, And I want to share a couple of them with you today. Hey, by the way, how many of you were in Phoenix last time? Just to give me an idea. Okay, cool. How many of the Phoenix people are going to be here on Tuesday? Okay, cool. Same people. Ironic. All right, here's Alexis with her first thing where I asked her a question. Here she goes.
Now, here's a question for you. In your opinion, why do you believe there's not more entrepreneurs in the world today?
Because they're scaredy cats.
Now, for those of you that don't understand that accent, she said because they're scaredy cats. You can turn them up. Thanks. And the reality is that here's a little girl, and I didn't want to bore you with all the random ramblings that she did. I kind of narrowed it down. But I said, I don't understand what you mean. And she's like, well, people are scared, Daddy. They want to go easy. Again, I understand that I've brainwashed my daughter early on to become an entrepreneur. But I also believe that how many of you would have loved for your parents to start teaching you and pushing you that at 6 years old, right? Think about how ahead she's got. She has more money saved at 6 than most adult friends I know because she's disciplined and she's very frugal with her money. She doesn't go out and just waste it. And she'll sit there and say, I don't know if I want it that much. Like I'll say, you have $20 in your spend jar. Do you really want to spend $15? If you do, great, but that's what it costs. I don't know. She understands the value of money versus kids nowadays. And you're getting officially old when you start calling them kids nowadays. I'm in my 40s. So and by the way, you go, well, how do I know if I'm that kid? And I'm like, if you think Ronald Reagan is just an airport in Washington, D.C., you're probably in that age range. But let's look at this guy here, though, what he says. There he goes. He says, I play World of Warcraft naked 40 hours a week. I eat mostly McDonald's, and I'm probably unemployable, but I'm the 99%. Now, what I found interesting when I found this was, it's not really far off because a lot of people expect handouts. A lot of people expect, and I'm not criticizing, we're not getting into the political thing and all that kind of stuff, but here's the one thing I found interesting, is what makes people become the 1%. Because a lot of times people will say, well, you know what? Even in this industry, in this business, not very many people really make the big money. Well, in life, not a lot of people really make the big money. But a lot of people also believe it's just handouts. It's not about handouts. I'm looking for people that are willing to do what most people aren't. So Jay's wonderful, concept of the 99%, the X, Y, and Z, and this that's coming out is that we all possess 99% of what it takes. It's that 1% that most people aren't willing to do. What is that? Somebody mentioned earlier that Malcolm Gladwell, his book, what's it called? Outliers. If you haven't seen that book, it's really interesting where he talks about where you need 10,000 hours worth of development, 10,000 hours worth of commitment into one particular area to be fantastic at it. So a concert pianist and just somebody that's good at playing is probably about 10,000 hours worth of effort. Where else have we found that? Olympics. In the Olympics, you have people that spend 15, 20 years of their entire life to come down to one race. And that one race comes down to 1/100th of a second. Many times. You've seen that. 1/100th of a second is the difference between a gold medal and nothing. Being known and say, can I have your autograph versus can I take your order? That's truly the difference within one. So you don't have to be disproportionately better than everybody else. All you got to be is 1% better. All you got to be is just a little bit better. And I realize also this is disturbing watching this, but as I was researching, I started coming across a lot of this 99%, the people in Occupy Wall Street and all these people, and I said, maybe they got something. Maybe they're right. Maybe the world is unfair. They do call it work for a reason. I mean, maybe the big government and big banks, and maybe they're just taking advantage of me and all this stuff. So I started watching interviews, and I found a common theme. I'll share one of them that I saw. And this guy was standing out there with a sign that says, "Pay for my college education." But listen to his rationale, because it does make a lot of sense.
Your sign. Tell me about your sign.
My sign? It just says, "Throw me a bone, pay my tuition."
Why?
Why? Because I think these billionaires are getting a lot of money just out of greed. They're exploiting people, the underclass, like lower class people, middle class people.
How do they do that?
How do they do that? Just through, I guess it has to do with the government as well. For example, we get taxed more than they do.
That's not true.
It's not true?
Do you know the country with the highest corporate tax rate in the world?
Okay, but that doesn't mean...
It's the United States, 35%.
Yeah, that's in comparison to other countries, but I'm talking specifically...
But it's 35%, that's pretty high. And also, 1% of the population pays 40% of all the taxes.
Well, just reading statistics from what I've seen, for every dollar where tax corporations are taxed 25 cents. And that just doesn't seem fair to me.
Where did you read that?
Online.
Okay. Let's just suppose that there was lots of money and there was no economic crisis there. Why should anyone pay for your college tuition?
Why?
Yeah.
It's just my opinion.
No, but give me the reason for it. Why should... I'd quite like a new car. Should that be paid for?
Your car?
Yeah.
No, it's whatever. People can say whatever they want.
No, of course you can say what you want, but I'm asking why that in particular,
Just because it's what I want.
Yeah. But you can't just have everything you want paid for, surely.
No, but I can put it out there. I can say what I want. Right. So that's what I think.
Okay, that's fine. But from my perspective, what you've done is you've basically written stuff you want on a sign, like a Christmas list, and then you're holding it in the air.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Here's a guy that says they should throw me a vote. Why? Well, because I deserve that, because the big banks and the government and all these big business people, they're making all the money, and I don't think it's fair. Okay, but I don't understand why. 1% of the population pays over 40% of the taxes. Aren't they entitled to that? Well, I don't really like statistics. That's what the guy said. And then he goes, well, why don't you just want them to buy you a car too? Well, I don't know. He's like, well, don't you think you should work for it? Well, you're entitled to your opinion, I'm entitled to mine. This is the rationale that people have, which is give me, I deserve. And I thought that was interesting. And it posed to me, when I saw that video, it posed a very interesting question to me. And the question that I came up with was, why do some people succeed while other people fail? And to me, that was really interesting. And I guess I'll pose that question to you guys real quick, and then I'll share with you what my thought process was. But why do you believe some people succeed, but yet most people don't succeed? And by the way, life isn't fair. We understand that. Everything isn't equal. Some of us are born with more privilege, opportunity, better everything, right? But yet, some people still overcome those adversities. What was the thing this morning David Bach talked about with the guy from Vietnam who worked, in the back of the dry cleaners? How did he do that? He didn't say, I didn't know the language, I didn't have money, I saw opportunity. But why is that? Anybody want to share an idea? Ma'am? Oh, that's beautiful. Okay? Responsibility. People a lot of times want to blame other people as opposed to taking responsibility. And responsibility obviously is the key, because without it, all we have left is blame. Anybody else? Not everybody. Yes, sir. Yeah, belief and conviction. Conviction and is a big word, so I'm going to write belief. Okay? And by the way, when you're driven for something, if you really want something bad, and that's why I say, do you want 3 years hard labor or life without parole? And that's the difference between having a job, which stands for just over broke, versus having opportunity. And I would much rather have the opportunity. But having that belief, and even as a kid, I remember daydreaming, fantasizing, whatever, every night before I go to bed, seeing what I wanted, seeing the car, seeing, not just the physical things, but feeling a certain way, that manifestation. And I still do it to this day, and I think that if you believe in something enough, you'll figure out a way. Now, let me ask you this question. In life and in your business, you're hit with objections, aren't you? Okay. In South Africa, where I go there every 6 weeks, and from where I stay to the office is about 7 traffic lights. And traffic lights there, they call robots. And at every robot, we have 8 to 12 beggars at every single one. I see the same beggars, same robots every single morning. Now, it's interesting because, number one, these people a lot of times don't have the same opportunities we have, but also I found that some of them are very good salespeople. First thing they do is establish rapport, and that's why you never make eye contact with them when you go up to the robot, because they're like, hello, and then you're like, no, I don't want to do it. Then if that doesn't work, they walk up and they start going, and if that doesn't work, then really good aggressive ones will tap on your window and go back. So if you ignore them 2 or 3 times, they'll typically go away. They get 1,000 no's every morning. 1,000 no's every morning. Why do you believe they do that? Persistence, for the one. Here's the big reason. They're hungry. There's no handouts. You eat or you don't eat. There's no free food. In America, the poor ain't that poor. Oh, you're hungry? We'll give you food stamps. You need clothing vouchers. We'll give you a place to stay. You don't have medical insurance? No problem. Those other schmucks that are, all that, we'll let them pay for all your health care and all that too. Don't worry about that, right? So it made me start thinking about something else over there. What's a bigger motivator for us? Pleasure or pain? It's obvious. But I think pleasure could be a little bit. Like if I say, hey, if you're able to introduce 10 new people to this business, we're going to give you a $100 cash bonus. Yeah, hey, I'll try, whatever, but $100 isn't going to impact our lifestyle one way or the other, right? But if I said, if you don't find 10 people in the next 6 months, at our next meeting, you're going to have your choice between pepper spray and a taser, right? What's a bigger motivator, right? You're going to avoid that pain at all costs. And so what we have to do is ask ourselves this question: how hungry am I? Because if you were really that hungry, you would figure out a way to make it work. Now, pleasure does work. If I say, I'm going to give you a $10 million cash bonus if you can find 10 new, you would figure out a way, but you can't buy it yourself, and you can't have other friends buy it. Then all of a sudden you'd say, I'll work day and night, I'll get on the internet, I'll do searches, I'll go find people, brick and mortar businesses, I'm going to do all that. So pain does outweigh pleasure for the most part in our lives. And overcoming objections is actually pretty easy, especially in what it is that we're sharing with people. And by the way, through Pro University, we have the ability to help people even within their existing jobs. They could just have a job, and Pro U can help them. And the reality is that we got to overcome those objections by not allowing them to happen to begin with. And I'll give you a great example of that. When I'm on the road for a while, first thing I do when I come home, obviously, is take a big glass of water and some Tylenol, put it next to the bed. First night I get back, my wife's like, I don't have a headache. Why do you have it there? I'm like, good. Overcome the objection before it becomes an objection. You get it. This one guy took his first notes. He's like, that's good. I'm going to write that down when I get back. You got to overcome the objections before they become objections by just explaining, look, this isn't for everybody. This business isn't for everybody. And you choose to do what you want to do, but your job is not to help them make the decision, but to educate them, let them make the decision that's most important to them. So these are all very important things that you guys wrote down, but here are the reasons I found that people fail through our research. Number one is commitment. Isn't that interesting? Someone put responsibility, which is, again, dead on. So we're going to go into each one of these in detail, but there's commitment, there's communication, and finally, there's continuous learner. These are the three things that if you master, it's going to change a lot in terms of your business, okay? Commitment, communication, continuous learner. So let's look at the first one, commitment. My daughter wanted to play soccer, or for the UK, football, last year. And I said, now listen, Alexis, that's totally cool you want to do it, but there's two things you need to know. Number one, it's an 8-week program. That means every Saturday morning for the next 8 Saturdays, we have to be out here at 7:30, rain or shine. Number two, it costs $85. I'm willing to pay it if you're committed to go through the program and play. Yes, Daddy, I'm going to do it. Fantastic. First week we get out there. She's all dressed up in her new uniform, got the knee pads, got the shoes. That was extra. Got all the stuff. She goes out 5 minutes, comes back. She goes, this sucks. She didn't want to play anymore. I was like, well, we got to stay and cheer on the team, Alexis. I mean, you can't not do that. And she's like, all right, so next week, well, I don't want to go. No, you're going to go, and we're going to sit there because you committed. Commitment is very, very important, Alexis. She's okay. So every week for 8 weeks, we stood out there, cold, sometimes raining, and we did it. And every week I asked her if she wanted to play. Guess what every week she said? No. But the last week, they had trophies on the table. We get a trophy, Daddy. No, we don't. Only people that play get a trophy. And I said, do you want to play this week? And she goes, not really. So that's fine. So at the end of the soccer match, guess what they did? They started handing them out, and they call her name. And I said, sit down. You're not getting a trophy. Now, I know you're thinking I'm a horrible dad, right? But she started crying, and if you have a kid, you've heard this. I'm not going to be your friend. You know what I told her? Good. I'm your daddy. You don't have to be my friend. And unlike your mom, you can't go anywhere. You got to stay right here with me. You get it. She would leave, right? Okay, good. So my kid, so I said, but later that day, I said, Alexis, I want you to understand something. I want you to understand that in life, you don't just get something for nothing. You don't get a trophy for crossing the street. You don't get a trophy for being on the team. I mean, imagine that. Imagine you're in a job and you go, look, you really haven't been doing that well. Your performance is really horrible, but we want to give you a certificate for being on time every day. It doesn't work that way. People only get rewarded in life for winning. In fact, about a month ago, she came home and she was selling magazine subscriptions. I was like so proud. And she came home and she said, Dad, I came in first place. First place, so more subscriptions than any other kid in first grade. Now, I don't know how great a salespeople first graders are, but she did really well. And her reward was to go to a pizza place in a limousine. So she was like so psyched about it. And I said, you should be so proud of yourself, Alexis. Look what you've done. You worked hard. You've achieved. You're number one. High five. And of course, her mom stepped in. She's a hippie. And her mom's like, listen, Alexis, it is wonderful that you came in first, but it's not about coming in first that matters. It's about working hard and being a good team player. And I was like, do you know who says that, Alexis? Losers, all right? We go for number one. Number one, that's what we go for. And that's what I got to teach her, is about creating this work ethic that says, I am a winner and I will achieve. And again, winning doesn't have to necessarily mean I make the most money, but winning means I'm my very best. So I agree with my hippie wife that working hard is very important, but I always go for the win. Why do you want to come in second? That sucks. And I want to be able to say and teach her that if you work hard and if you try your best, more than likely you'll win, because you know why? Most people won't. And when I'm in business and I'm up against people that have MBAs in Wharton School or Reading in the UK or wherever, like, how do you beat them? I'll come earlier than they come. I'll stay later than they stay. I'll work harder than they work. Because most people will sit back on their laurels. And they don't want to really do what's really, we all want the six-pack, but are we willing to do what it takes to have the six-pack? And that's a flat stomach like you, my friend, right? So, to me, commitment is a really important piece. And this is part of that 99% that we talked about. 99% of the people do what 99% of the people do. and they blame, and they make excuses. In fact, here's your arch enemy. Two things: rationalization, justification. That's what we do. We rationalize or we justify everything that we have. And that's painful sometimes. So when I hear people say, well, you don't understand, it's difficult. Oh, okay, are you rationalizing or justifying? You choose. And I catch myself, well, this and that. No. Rationalization, justification. Because here's what happens also. Here we are starting a new year. What do most people do during the new year? Anybody know? New Year's resolutions. I'm going to lose 10 pounds. I'm going to stop smoking. I'm going to do all this stuff. But here's what happens. Behavior modification is a very easy thing to do. Anybody could say, I'm going to do this. But in 3 months' time, they stop smoking. Month 1, no problem. Month 2, no problem. Month 3, no problem. Then they're at a party with some friends. They haven't seen these mates for a long time. And then what do? Rationalization, justification. They'll say, well, I haven't seen him in a long time, and I haven't smoked in almost 4 months, and I deserve 1 cigarette. Sound familiar? And that's one of the challenges that we're faced with, was we always seem to rationalize our behaviors. And that's why even programs like AA tend to be a little bit more successful than those that try to quit, say, drinking on their own, because behavior modification requires, number one, strategy, which we're going to talk about on Tuesday, but more importantly, around other people of like-minded community to keep you on task. Thus, the pro-elite community. See, I don't listen to the people in my life that have jobs that they hate going to every day. I want to hang out with people that see the opportunity, the future. This is my daughter, by the way, when I asked her what she wanted to be when she grew up. And she doesn't say entrepreneur, but she was very profound.
Alexis, what do you want to be when you grow up?
I want to be a part of the 1%.
So the reality is that she wants to be best, and she's very proud of her ability to be what she thinks of herself as a young business person. She answers the phone, and she's not like a typical 6-year-old either. I mean, she will carry on an adult conversation with you, and people go, it's so amazing that your child is like so beyond her years in terms of communicating. Number one, she's an only child, so we've only spoken as an adult to her since she was little. And she loves being a kid, so it's not like we're trying to force her into business or anything. But to her, learning is fun. To her, learning is something that she's a ferocious learner. I mean, she'll go to school every day and learn. She'll come home and say, I'm so excited, this is what I learned. And after dinner, Daddy, can we read? And I'm like, read? I want to play Call of Duty online. I want to play video game. Anybody on Call of Duty here? Okay. Well, one dude. Is that the 17-year-old? Okay, cool. It's kind of embarrassing because you PS3 or Xbox? Okay. I do PS3 only because I don't like to pay to play like Xbox does. But it's a great game. And my wife always says, you play with a bunch of kids. And I'm like, no, I don't. And she was in there listening because you have headsets. And I'm like, all right, guys, listen. I'm going to be flanking them on the left. If you could just watch me on the right side. Okay, we got your back. So, all right, I play with 12-year-olds. But it's fun. We have a good time. But my daughter doesn't look at school as training. She looks at it as learning. And think about this. You guys are here. And one of the most refreshing things about coming to these events, over this past week I did 8 talks for HP. How many of those HP people wanted to be at that meeting? I mean, the first question I asked was, how many of you were thinking, or at least hoping, today isn't going to suck? Every one of them raised their hand. But that's because they're forced to do it. And we have to begin to change our commitment to ourselves that say, I want to continue to grow and be a better person. Which leads us to communication. It's funny about communication because communication is the most used, obviously, form of being able to get along with each other, but it's also the most misunderstood. Meaning, think about emails as an example. How many times has an email been misinterpreted? Or you read an email, it's like, I can't believe he's yelling at me. He's doing it in all caps. But he didn't even know it was in all caps. I mean, we go from this society that we're constantly turned on, but yet we've lost the touch of being able to be nice to people. Or we don't pick up the phone and call someone anymore. We send them a text. Mr. 17, did you know that they have phones you can actually pick up and call people, right? As opposed to what we do, we just do texting. My 6-year-old, I couldn't figure something out on the iPhone. She goes, here, give it to me. I'll fix it, Daddy. And she could like flip the camera back around and everything. It's just like it's intuitive, which is cool and it's nice. But at the same time, we begin to lose the touch of really being able to work with people. And I think that if you think about it in terms of what you write, let me give you an example. My wife took my daughter to CVS, which is a drugstore. And as they pulled into the parking lot, this is what my 6-year-old said to my wife. Mom, where's the effing pharmacy? And she said, excuse me? She said, you heard me. Where's the effing pharmacy? Now, first of all, did you know I got in trouble for that? It's the weirdest thing. My wife said, she's like going, I told you, she listens to what you say. I can't believe this. You're a bad influence, all this stuff. But then my wife had the sensory acuity to ask one more question. She said, honey, I don't understand what you're saying. And she said, look up at that sign where it says pharmacy. I don't see the letter F anywhere in that word. You see? So here's a lesson as an entrepreneurial value that you can learn from a 6-year-old. It's not what you say, it's what they hear. So when you share the opportunity, it's not what you believe, it's what they hear. It's not what you write, it's what they feel. And that's why it's so important to put things into perspective in the other person's eyes. Put things in their world. And that's why with our daughter, we always ask qualifying questions because we don't know. Don't just assume because someone says no that it might be no because they don't know what you're talking about. And a lot of people will shy away from admitting what they don't know by just saying, oh, no thanks, as opposed to educating. You know what I mean? And then the third one is obviously being a continuous learner. And you have two things with this. Number one, Pro U, which is pretty cool, if I say so myself. And number two, I'm going to give you an example. Todd Timmerman has turned out to be a good friend of mine, and he's the number one top money earner for a company called Principal Financial Group and their division. He sells 401ks or retirement programs, okay? He's a straight commission sales guy. And he earns and has earned for over the last 15 years 7 figures a year. Now, for those of us that aren't really good at zeros, that's over $1 million US a year. Straight commission, working hard, doesn't get paid just like your pro business unless you do the effort. And I asked Todd, I said, are you just lucky because you've been in the business long enough and you have such good contacts? Are you in a good position because you work for a good brand that most people know in terms of, at least in corporate America? And he said, nope, I stay a student. He said, I try to learn as much as I can. I go to every event I can go to. I pay for it myself out of my own pocket. I don't ask the company to do it. And I try to do continuing education because I always want to push myself to the next level. And I found that to be also something we found as a common trait. People that just go and do and check mark they did it typically will not succeed long term. Those that are willing to be committed and stay a student are the ones that have the most success. Now, I find that to be more than just a coincidence. I also find that when I go, and not here because you being here is like enough because you paid to be here, but when you go to events where these corporate events where we do seminars, even like last week or earlier this week, I don't know what week I'm in, but last week when I was doing it, the first 4 rows were totally empty. With the exception of, ironically, because I always go up and there's usually 4 or 5 people, and they're either the top leader or a top producer. I find it very intriguing. Now there's exceptions to that rule, so I'm not making a thing. And again, everyone in here deserves kudos because you're here. What day is today? Sunday. Why are you here on a Sunday? And not only are you here on a Sunday, but it's, 80 degrees, 28 Celsius outside or whatever, and it's beautiful, and we could be doing the leap of faith and do a team building because we deserve that, right? Or we could be in here. And by the way, when I'm done, and we're going to take a short break, you're going to hear from my good friend, Lieutenant Colonel Waldo Waldman, who's going to talk to you about the importance of leveraging our teammates, our wingmen. And having someone like that that's willing to come down here and do this is incredible. This is where you separate yourself from the majority of everybody. And I don't care about money. I don't care about any of that. I'm talking about what it is. And by the way, Waldo, who's down here, charges, 15,000 US dollars for an hour's worth of your time. If you paid that out of your pocket to have him speak to you personally for an hour, you'd probably listen to everything he says, wouldn't you? But yet he's here and he's for you. And the question is, do I want to take this as if I'm actually paying that kind of a fee to hear this guy talk? Because it changes our whole mentality. Just like if I said, hey, listen, you're going to get up and give these slides in an hour, it's going to change how well you listen to want to learn. That's the power. So you're going to have to choose, and that's the thing. Because it's not about our conditions. It's about our decisions. It's not about our circumstances. It's about how we react to those things. And you can live your life by decision or choice, okay? So you can live your life the way you want to choose to live your life, or you can live by default, which are the situations that you're dealt. And the choice is yours. And that's the beautiful thing about life. Doesn't matter what country you're from, doesn't matter anything. Some people are uneducated, they don't know this. But the reality is you can choose. Choose to be happy, choose to be unhappy. Choose to find success, don't choose to find success. I could have grown up just like my dad. We had bill collectors calling our house every single day. We called them telemarketers, okay? Or I could choose to do something different with my life, But stagnation and decline require no effort. You can stay right where you are, show up to your job, hate your job, whatever it is. But the reality is that takes no effort. It takes guts to take a chance. That's being a hero. Because very few people are willing to do that. Most people are happy with good enough. And good enough isn't. There isn't anything worse than just stagnation out there. And I love this because if you don't have a plan for your life, one's going to be provided for you. So I think it's really important that we create a plan. We create a strategy, which, by the way, on Tuesday, we're going to kind of deep dive into that and really understand the importance, and not only the importance, but how to do it. Because that's one of the frustrating things is when you watch trainers or speakers and all these people, they tell you, you should do this, you should do that, and then you should all over yourself because nobody really shows you how to do it. Just why you should do it. You should eat better. Yeah, no joke, but I like Johnny Rockets, so, that's just the way it is. Now, people will say, is there a secret to success? Does anybody know what the secret is? What's that? There's no secret. Are you sure? Well, let me see. No, there's not. You're right. How'd you know? Somebody told you. So there's no secret to success. But I guess if there was one, you would be willing to do the things that others aren't. Wouldn't you agree? That's the secret to success. Be willing to do what other people aren't willing to do. And be prepared to do them for a really, really long time. That is a challenge we also have with today's generation, not only with kids, but in our mindset. It's a I want it now mentality. I deserve. And we've become entitled to it. I was on the airplane coming over and the internet started going slow. I'm like, this is ridiculous. As opposed to thinking, gosh, I'm surfing on the web, in a tube. And it's really cool, and I'm up in the air. But yet, a lot of times, we become entitled to stuff. Or we say, I've been trying this for 3 weeks, and I'm not number one yet. As opposed to saying, what am I truly willing to commit to? And that's the part, even this morning, when I was listening to David Bach, I was thinking to myself, I can see where people fall in the trap to say, well, the latte thing makes sense, but you're talking about 10 years. That's a lot of coffee I'm missing. It's difficult when you start saying who's willing to commit over a longer period of time for the reward. By the way, that's why I don't like to exercise so much. All you do is die tired. All right, little joke. But here's what 1% of the people are willing to do. They're willing to take risk when other people aren't. You guys have done that. See how many of these you can check mark off for yourself. They're willing to look foolish. I saw some of us dancing. And actually, you guys are all really good dancers. I've never danced publicly my entire life. Shower? Yes. In front of people? No way. But you know what? I should, because then it's okay to look foolish, right? It's kind of neat. Like, I won't even pull him out. But the one dude, I was like, what's wrong with him? But I was like, he's doing what I'm not willing to do. So how can I judge that? Right? Others aren't willing to think bigger than you are, to say that there is more possibility. They just want to hope to win it or blame why they don't have it. Because, by the way, do you know what's interesting? My dad, 78, still broke. Isn't that interesting? I wonder if that's an ironic thing. And still, you know, like you sit there and you would think, wow, you know, he's going to give me a lot of great encouragement, because all I ever wanted was, you know, his admiration and all that. That's why I tried to give it to my daughter. And, you know, you don't get it. He wants to talk about his prostate. And I'm just saying, you know, he's that age. And I'm sitting there saying, I want to think big, and I want to do, and I want my daughter, I should have taken a picture of this. We have Post-it notes on her bathroom mirror when, you know, my wife started it, where she's like, your mommy loves you because you're special and you're funny and you're kind, and she does. And I watched my daughter while she brushes her teeth. She reads it now because she can read. Mommy loves me because I'm kind. Do you think those affirmations will work? And now I've put the Post-it notes on there where I'm saying, you know, you will take care of your daddy when he's old. You know, you will not put him in a nursing home. No. I put things on there that you will succeed. You will be successful. Because I want her to do that over and over in her mind and think bigger. You know, other people are not willing to invest their time, their own money. I've had people in an organization go, I would love to do that extra stuff, but my company won't pay for it. You have your own money. You're an adult. Invest in you. Others aren't willing to get up earlier. Well, it's so hard with this thing because I got another job that I'm working, you know, freelance, full-time. Wonderful. I'm guilty. I play Call of Duty, right? I mean, that's my thing. I don't sip scotch. I don't, you know, go out clubbing or anything like that. But I love to play Call of Duty at night. That's just how I enjoy it. But if I look at that, I think, how many hours do I waste? And here's the convenient thing: it tells you how many hours you play, and that's disturbing when I see that. But have you beat the new 3? Oh, we need to talk. I'm going to share some stuff with you. It's good. Rank? Okay. All right, good. Lie. General. You're focused on being an entrepreneur. Very good. That's even better. See, you're doing more than me, and that's beautiful. But for the reality is that I just find that a lot of people, are you willing to do what other people aren't? Get up earlier, stay later, that kind of stuff. And of course, people aren't willing to keep learning. We just spent some time with that, and they're not willing to change. And change, by the way, is probably the most important thing up there. The willingness to say, am I willing to go with the flow? Am I willing to revisit assumptions? Because remember, experience could become your worst affliction in business because of biased behaviors. The inability to revisit assumptions, the unwillingness to change course. You know, you have to be willing to change in order to grow and be better. That's the bottom line. I want to close by sharing with you the importance of having an anchor. And you go, what's an anchor? Well, you know what an anchor is on a boat, right? And what's the purpose of an anchor on a boat? Keep it from floating away. Hold it still. Anybody else? Yeah. Keeping it within a certain parameter. Those are all excellent. Think about your life. If you have no purpose, if you have no why, if you have no anchor, what happens when times get tough? Yeah. You have to find why you're in this business. And it can't be solely about just making money. There has to be a greater purpose. What did we mention earlier? Helping others, making a difference, being a student, learning. You find that anchor, that purpose. I can find a lot of jobs that I don't have to be away from my family. I choose this because it's not a job. I choose this because it's an experience, something that I can do, which is help and serve and give and share and do these things, because it's very important. And when you find your anchor, no matter what life throws at us, economically, financially, we always get back to center. And that's important. And I'll just tell you, obviously I haven't shared this because it just happened to me. About 2 months ago, I landed in South Africa. And when I reached down to grab my bag, I got up, I got really, really dizzy. And I never get, plus I'm a hypochondriac on top of that, right? So I'm dizzy and I'm like, whoa, that's like totally not normal for me. And I thought I was gonna have to get a wheelchair, to get through customs, and they would think I'm on some drug and I get detained. And so I'm like struggling through, and I get through and all that. It didn't go away. So I went to a doctor, they gave me penicillin, it helped a little bit, but when I came back home, I was still dizzy. I went to the ear, nose, and throat surgeon. They put, cameras in my nose. They did all these tests, and they were like, your ears are clear, hearing test. They put me on another antibiotic, steroids, for over a month. And then I'm starting to think, I got a brain tumor or something, right? They're like, well, that's our next step. I don't know. Maybe we should do an MRI, And, but then I found out, with our healthcare system, it sucks. I pay $1,500 a month, and then they still want me to pay like $3,000 to get an MRI. And I'm like, brain cancer, $3,000. I'm like, I'll take my chance. So I was like, let me give it another week, right? Because I called another friend of mine who's a surgeon. He goes, listen, if you got a tumor, which I doubt you do, a week ain't gonna matter. Let's just give it another week, see if it sorts it out. Turns out it was something to do with sinuses and inner ear, and I had this raging whatever infection. But my point of that long story is this. When I thought something was wrong with me, all of a sudden, did I care about the stress of the job or the travel or anything else? And it's funny because we tend to not think about what's most important and stay centered on our anchor or gratitude in our life until we begin to think we're gonna lose something greater than that. It's kind of like if you think about your big left toe right now and you wiggle it a little bit. If you wiggle your left toe, look at that. Now, how many of you were thinking about that big left toe a minute ago? Nobody. And now you probably can't stop wiggling it and thinking about the big left toe. It's like the oxygen in this room that no one's thinking about unless we sucked it out of the room, right? Then it becomes very important to us. That big toe, man, won't go away. It just keeps focusing on it. And that's what happens with opportunities. They become a focus. What are you going to choose to focus on when you leave here today? The opportunity or the cost? The investment, or what am I missing at home? And there's no greater investment than investing in yourself. And that, to me, is the most powerful thing. So I wanted to close because Alexis had something she wanted to share with you. And I'll let her tell it to you. And you can kill mine when we do this and then turn me back up.
Okay.
Hey, Pro, what are you going to do with your opportunity?
Oh, what are you going to do with your opportunity? And so, of course, she has another one that I didn't put in there. She said, Jay Kubasek, you're my hero. But I thought that would be pandering, so I didn't do it. But the thing is that make Alexis proud. We've learned so much from Alexis. I mean, every day I wake up, and you would think, what can you learn from a little kid? But you can learn so much because they have no fear. They're willing to take chances. They don't judge. They don't have any biased behaviors. They're totally honest, which, by the way, when you think about honesty is one of those things that's, especially in communication, it's not necessarily a great thing. Because how many times has somebody said, can I be honest with you and tell you something about you? And something good comes after that, right? And with a kid is honest. My feet stink. But a kid also can be, really honest. Your feet stink, and you're out somewhere. As adults, we have the filter, but as a child, we need to become more childlike, I think, to be a very effective entrepreneur. Does that make sense? And one other thing just popped in my mind about that. As a kid, I used to have where, I would have lemonade. How many of us had that? Like a lemonade stand, or we sold cookies on the side of the road. Now, if I look back, was that a very good investment of my time on the side of the road selling cookies and lemonade? meaning financially at the time. Not so much, right? You sell like 2 cups of lemonade and like 1 cookie. By the way, who's going to eat cookies from a dirty little kid on the side of the road? But I didn't realize that I could fail. I didn't think about the fact that it may not equate to fiscal, upside. I just said, I'm starting my own cookie business on the side of the road, and I'm willing to take a chance to make that happen. But we lose that as adults. We try to rationalize and justify, and we try to find the reasons why stuff won't work, as opposed to having faith. There, I said the F word. Have faith and know that there is opportunity if you choose to find it. Does that make sense? I want to say thank you guys very much. And even though we're intimate in a size-wise, I want you to know that, you guys are going to laugh, I promise you. But I definitely want to say thank you so much. Justin, come on up, and I'm going to see you guys around, eh?
All right, make some noise for Brian. Well done, brother.